All right, guys. As is typical on this channel, we are doing things last minute, and we got a great guest today, Kyle Dvorchak. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I was just updating, trying to find the J.K. Dobbins tweet where like Rappaport's like, yeah, he's not going to play week 1, and J.K. Dobbins is like, go screw yourself, Rapp. I'll be there week 1. Trying to get an update on that. I love it. We need more players interacting like this on Twitter.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, I've been in Vegas for the last couple of weeks, so I was hoping you could help fill me in any newsworthy news that we missed in the past couple of weeks. Doesn't seem like much. Seems like we're kind of in the slow part of the NFL season where we're about to get a bunch of news as camps start. Anything noteworthy on your end?
I honestly don't think so. And I can say this with confidence that not really a lot has happened, specifically because I work for like a news company, and all of my shifts are just like really digging for anything we can find. And it's
tweeting at Will Fuller's friends like, hey,
I know.
Can we get a Will Fuller SOS or anything?
Is he okay? Like, can we check on Will Fuller? Yeah, the J.K. Dobbins denial was good. Yeah, let's see. We got like James White still in a walk or uncomfortable gait. I literally just pulled up
I'm still drafting him. I mean, I know like, you know, especially in managed, I think it's easier because you can just drop him, but I don't know, like it just doesn't make any sense to me why they would bring James White back if they have no intention. Like, and he got hurt like week 3 last year.
So it's just a weird injury. It's like not one we have a lot of like colloquially understanding. Like we all kind of know the timetable of an ACL, where his was like a weird hip injury. And at first it wasn't reported that it was like, this is it, season over, but then that quickly changed.
Yeah. And he's an older player. And I mean, obviously he just had a tragic, like his parents both passed away as well. Yeah. So like, who knows what that does to a young man, you know, like on the twilight of his career. But it doesn't really make sense why he wouldn't have just retired to me if he has zero intention of playing. And we saw early last year, it was a small sample size, but I mean, if he is just getting all these like short A-dot targets from Mac Jones, that could be a really valuable role. And like maybe it takes a month of the season for him to start playing, but I don't know. Like I like Ramondre as much as the next guy, but I'm just not convinced they're gonna let like LeGarrette Blount, you know, rejuvenated, be this pass catching monster.
Yeah, I of course, like anytime I see James White news that isn't like he's out there running a 4.3, I'm like, got to get more Ramondre shares. Even though like it's not really much new information. We also, in regards to him, we got a report from, I think it was like ESPN's beats projecting the final rosters, and they thought they had a good chance of, or at least a reasonable chance of him making it on the PUP to start the year, not like start training camp. But like that's not a ton of actionable information. I don't know how long you've been gone. Baker Mayfield plays for the Panthers now.
I knew that one. I got that one. That one made it in the
Leonard Fournette's big again.
Yeah, I saw that today too. I don't know. Like he got a fat contract. Not to make a pun right now.
Oh yeah, he did.
And then, but you know, like it's probably not that hard to lose 20 pounds of weight when you're weighing 260 or something. It's dumb. It's probably real dumb to do, to just like piss off your coaches for no reason. But I don't know how. Like, I mean, I've been taking Rashard White already. I don't think he's gonna like jump a couple rounds. But before we get too far ahead of us, let's introduce you a little bit better to the channel. I'm sure people know you, but my introduction to you, I believe, was last year. You took down, or you placed second in a baseball contest. You won $250K in DFS MLB, and then you were firing at the high stakes DK best ball drafts.
We were DMing each other while they were trying to fill, right?
Yeah, and I, a nobody at the time, you could say still is, was reaching out to you, and you being a gracious guy was answering my questions. We were trying to fill the contest. So tell the people about your history with best ball. How'd you get started and whatnot?
I think I probably first started playing best ball like 5 or 6 years ago when there were no tournaments. At least as far as I remember, there were no best ball tournaments. It was just MFL 10s. And then the big innovation was like MFL 10 double ups, right? It was like, you know, top 2 payout or top 1 payout. And then a year or two later, they're like, what if it was just a double up, like just cash games? And that was like, It was like the big innovation
Like,
in the space.
woo!
And then we got drafters or just draft. No, it's just draft. And that started getting things really interesting. But I was still not playing a lot of like action back then. But I've just always loved any sort of fantasy game for the game aspects of it. As much as like I enjoy watching football, it's a nice way to pass the Sundays, and I like it as a job to cover it. I pretty much just like any game, sort of anything you can lab out, anything that has a good meta to it. So that's really where my love of it came in. And then I think the tournament structure is just so much more interesting than straight up top, first of 12 wins, second of 12 gets like their money back or whatever. As much as like there's probably a pretty big edge to be had grinding those games out, especially on probably not an underdog. If you want to go to like DraftKings drafters, MFL 10 still alive. Someone check on them. This is like when Zoom or whatever, who like, oh, Skype. It's like
Skype had the huge lead and fumbled the bag.
Yeah, God bless MFL 10s. I'm sure they're still. I think they're still up.
I'm sure they got acquired and merged into some FanDuel or whatever.
FanDuel. Oh my God, FanDuel has best ball. But anyways, the point being, if you want to like grind out a really low variance ROI, low variance but good ROI, you could definitely play the 12 mans, 3 mans, whatever.
That's not what we're here for, Kyle. We're here.
I don't do that.
I won big tournament. We're here for big tournaments. Loving games. That's definitely something is why I'm part of Best Ball as well. Regarding the high stakes, before we jump into today's Best Ball Mania 3, because I know we're on a clock here. Regarding the high stakes drafts you were doing last year, were you doing a little bit more of those because you had that MLB win, and so therefore, like tax reason wise, it made a little bit more sense to fire? Or are you always going to fire a couple high stakes best balls across the platforms?
Yeah, I had one, like some of the DK contests that paid out the 555 tickets were overlaying. So just like a random like Tuesday late slate MLB, the content, whatever, I don't remember what like dollar entry the contests were that paid out DraftKings best ball tickets. Like I would assume just the overlap between people who are playing like late slate Tuesday MLB and then want to play 555 best balls is not enough to fill the contest, clearly. So I got a few tickets then, and then I saw it wasn't going to fill. It came close to filling, but we still got, I guess, a little bit of rake back on it. Pretty small, I think. I don't think it came that close to not filling. But so we were getting some rake back on a contest I thought was a pretty big edge, but having like, 200,000 in my account made it easier to be like, I'm going to chase this overlay for like 5 consecutive days. I'm just going to try and keep firing. I only took like a dozen maybe, or maybe a little more entries into it, and it didn't even go that well. So
I mean, like I wasn't even sure if I was going to get to a dozen, and obviously I banked the contest last year. I think I will. Thanks guys for tuning in today. Per usual, I didn't give anyone notice, so happy to have any viewers at all. Gonna have a schedule out with the rest of the guests this week as soon as I book them all. And Hoagie says there's a video of Fournette power cleaning on 7-1. He doesn't look nearly as big. Yeah, I mean,
was trying to find there's a video of him and a bunch of other players on a treadmill, or on treadmills together. They're all running, and he's running slower, but he's also Leonard Fournette. He doesn't have to run as fast as a cornerback, and his shirt is really baggy, so you can't tell how big he is. But I was like trying to film scout just like a 15-second clip of it's like him, like defensive back, I think Jalen Mills, something Mills, I don't remember. Jalen Hurts was there too, I think a few guys, and I was trying to
that's why you guys tune in. Jalen Mills, we got defensive coverage on this show. I mean, honestly, NFL news, like especially this time of the season, sometimes people are just looking for anything to report, like especially the Rappaports said, like these guys are just firing from the hip sometimes, and some of it's gonna stick, but it's kind of wild that like some people with as much money as is gambled on the NFL, some people have like they just have an information edge, like I'm sure there's someone playing best ball out there who is way more in tune to NFL news than me, and is able to just like know like, oh yeah, like, James White, he's done for the year, or, like just not taking those shots in their portfolio. So we're jumping in. If you want to stream with us, I'm not sure how much of a delay, but it filled. You missed your shot for today, unless you predicted it.
Yeah,
we're famous on this channel for trying to fake out the audience. We don't want the sharp audience with us. I do notice some of these names in here, but we're pulling the 108, arguably one of the worst draft slots in my opinion. I would say the 7 and 8 are bad. Some people extend that to the 6. I really like the 106 because it guarantees you Austin Eckler or better to me. Like you get one of the elite wide receivers, you get one of the 2 elite running backs, or you get Austin Eckler. Like that's a pretty good consolation prize. What are you trying to usually do in these middle picks? Sometimes I take a Stephon Diggs. Sometimes I take a Travis Kelce. Sometimes I just take one of the running backs. How have you been building?
I feel like I've been taking either Kelsey, Diggs, or Dalvin Cook would be probably the 3 picks I've been taking there. And I totally agree. I think Eckler, I mean, I literally did my running back tiers and had Eckler as the bottom of tier 1 because he really wasn't that far off from Jonathan Taylor in points per game last year. It was like a point or a point and a half, I think.
I think the Chargers are the second best team in the NFL to me.
I'm fine with that.
Like I think it goes Buffalo, Chargers, and like, with the NFL in general, like you're coin flipping usually when 2 great teams meet up. They invested a lot on the defense. Like they added Khalil Mack, they signed J.C. Jackson. Their run defense was really bad last year, but that's arguably sharp to be bad at run defense. Like you want
to be bad at run defense or pass defense, you certainly take bad at run.
Yeah, and it's you're encouraging the other team to run the ball on you, which they can fumble the ball. It's a higher variance way of trying to win. And I'm sure they invested in there, and their O-line
they signed a bunch of like mid-tier T tackles, like Sebastian Joseph Day and some like guys I don't remember.
Guys who get the job done, who are not just turnstiles at the. I mean, OXD's talking here about his Spiller exposure. Austin Eckler is rumored to have asked the team basically to like get another guy to grind in at the red zone. He had a big red zone role last year. Do you think that's going to go away mostly with Spiller, or is it just maybe it goes down a little bit, but it's not noticeable enough?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that of all spots to take away touches from Eckler, it would be in the red zone.
We're on the clock here. Do you want to go Diggs or do you want to go Cook?
I really don't care. Let's go Diggs.
All right, let's go Diggs.
It's like the 2 picks I'm making in this spot. I haven't taken a lot of Derrick Henry, and that could definitely bite me. Like that's something that I think.
Man, the way I draft, it's usually like if an older player who doesn't catch passes is gonna bury me against a defense I don't necessarily want to be targeting week 17 anyways. Like a running back against the Cowboys. Maybe they're a bad run defense. I don't know. It's not like they're playing like the Lions or something. If that buries me, yeah, we get that nitty-gritty on this channel. I get buried. It was like you just gotta have to take stands. I'm taking almost no Derrick Henry. Definitely not at cost. He sometimes even goes like at the 102, 104. Sometimes he falls in my opinion, sharper rooms. But I'll get some exposure to him just naturally. But I'm not forcing the Henry pick at all. But back to your Eckler point, you don't think they're going to take too much red zone roll away?
Yeah, like if you were trying to like maximize the the value of Austin Eckler, you would definitely want a second guy to take. You probably want this for most running backs, unless they're like basically Derrick Henry. And even
most running backs that weigh like 205 pounds or less.
And even last year, Derrick Henry got hurt. Although you kind of probably want him taking every touch, but you would take their touches away at the 50-yard line, 1st and 10 at the 50, or like 2nd and 1 at the 49, right? You don't take away pass catching work and probably not red zone work, especially if that running back is good at it, which like Austin Eckler isn't big, but that is not in any way prohibitive to being good in the red zone. And he is good in the red zone. So I definitely think it's possible to scale his touches back, but maybe this is sort of just the fantasy brain in me. But like, I think it's hard to argue against the logical nature of take away the low value touches for a team too, because typically fantasy points do correlate with like a player's value to a team. Like you want your best running back in the red zone just the way we want our favorite running back in the red zone. The same with catching passes. You don't want like Joshua Kelly taking the
real quick. We're on the clock here. Do you like one of the running backs? We're getting a huge value on Najee Harris.
Yeah, definitely Najee Harris. I have not been taking a lot of Najee Harris. Generally, I don't think it's a bad pick, but
the Diggs Najee combo is pretty rare because usually those people are probably on the 1-2 turn if they're taking him. You can see this room might be listening to us as Derrick Henry falls.
Dang. Oh man, I mean that is the right spot to take Derrick Henry, and like I definitely think there's like I say like I'm fine. I'm also fine with getting burned by Derrick Henry, who gets all of his value just from running, which is typically not the way we see the elite running backs come to fruition anymore. But last year he led the NFL in fantasy points per game. He just didn't get to play out a season, and I would have been buried had he not gotten hurt. It was just like dumb luck.
Yeah.
I mean, running backs get hurt at a better rate. Or a worse rate, but better for my drafting style. But, had he played 17 games, I'd have gotten buried by Derrick Henry. And the thing is, he did catch more passes. He's still not in any way a pass catching back, but he did improve his both yardage per game and receptions per game to career highs last year. Small sample admitted, but he caught 18 passes in, I think it was like 9 games, and his career high was 19, and he played a full season that year. So
yeah, it's interesting with him. Like, part of me wants to say it was bad process by me to fade him last year, and I just got lucky. The other part of me wants to say, well, half the fucking process of fading him was that he could get injured with such a workload. I don't know how freak his injury was. I think it was pretty freaky, and I would have been buried as I would have been buried as well. And he did get more pass game work, but I mean, this year in particular, what if Malik Willis becomes a starter? I don't think that's necessarily good for Derrick Henry to have a more mobile quarterback in the backfield. Usually that's a little bit worse for running backs. Circling back on Najee here, there's some sharp people who really like him. He caught a lot of passes last year. Maybe that goes down, but like Najee versus Aaron Jones, if you had asked me before the season where these players would be ranked, I don't think I would necessarily have said, oh, Najee will be in the first round and Aaron Jones will be like a second, third round player. However, you just got to pay attention to the market. And when you could get unique combos of players, especially in the first couple rounds, without having to reach to make it happen, it's just a smash to do that. But Najee does seem to be falling. I think people are maybe becoming more hip to the idea that the Steelers should not be that good of a team. But we'll see what the casual crowd does. Let's get to some comments here. Paul says, what up? What up? Swift over Henry. Yeah, I like that. Nick says he's barely taken Henry. You guys are going to be forced to take him. Would you have taken Henry at 17?
Yeah,
I think I would have.
I mean, he was literally the best fantasy back in the league last year, and then just got hurt. Like he was, I'm pretty sure even in half PPR, well, especially in half PPR, he was outpacing everyone else, and it wasn't like that awfully close.
Real quick, I'm going to throw a couple players at you. Would you rather take Alvin Kamara?
I'm not taking Alvin Kamara.
Or Pitts or Marquise Brown?
Pitts or more. If you have a split between those two, I don't take whoever you want, but Pitts then more, I'd say, I guess.
Pitts? Okay. I don't have a ton of Pitts, and I had a lot last year, so we're martingaling that.
Yes.
Are you not taking a falling Alvin Kamara?
I have not been taking Alvin Kamara, especially because I'm not really awfully confident in the Saints offense operating the way they have operated in years past. And that was the perfect system for Kamara. What's great for Alvin Kamara? When your quarterback always wants to dump down, or when you have no Michael Thomas and literally Marquez Callaway was their number one receiver. Yeah, no kidding. He's going to get a lot of targets. Not that he is not capable of getting a lot of targets, even in a crowded offense, but they're adding the single seasons reception leader in 16 game seasons and first round wide receiver. And hopefully
getting another short A-dot guy in Jarvis Landry, which is where Alvin Kamara typically eats. I mean, personally, I've been pretty in on the Saints being a good team, but I'm usually getting that through the pass catchers.
That's how I'd want to bet on them too, is bet on we got good Jameis Winston efficiency without kind of the bad plays as much last year. That's probably not that advantageous for Alvin Kamara relative to its value to someone like Michael Thomas.
Yeah, and it's also why the way I approach my portfolio is I had not been taking Alvin Kamara. So if I could use last year's example, I wasn't taking DeAndre Swift when he was a 1-2 turn guy. He became a 2-3 turn or even 3-4 turn guy. Then I started taking him. And I think if we're drafting a portfolio of teams, we should be doing that. So I've not been taking Alvin Kamara when he was a second round pick. Now that he's a third round pick, I want to be getting my shares, because even if I'm down on him, whatever, you missed 6 games to start the season, I don't care about that. And it looks like we might get the wraparound unless Womp Cassidy wants to be super high T, which I think he will. I think he's going to take Alvin Kamara. What do you say?
Oh my! You looking at his draft? Yeah, lots of especially with Henry and Joe Mixon. Lots of give me 300 carries guys on the team. Travis Etienne is not that style.
Oh, he
And
didn't
there you
take
go.
him.
And at
I
this
think
point,
we have to take him now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's exactly what you were talking about. Is like, especially if it's in a somewhat predictable way where prices are going to fluctuate. Like I'm always fine taking players I'm not in on as like quote players, as prospects, as my guys, whatever. If they go past cost, because like I don't really care I don't really care about anything. I'm just trying to beat this market as much as like sure, like I like T. Higgins as a player. He's cool. Jamar Chase too. I like these players, but like what matters is their cost. I don't think Alvin Kamara is a like slam dunk as a late second round pick. As like a middle of the fourth round, yeah, absolutely. So
yeah,
we're
as
trying
a
to
dead zone back, Alvin Kamara is part of
dead
the
zone back. Alvin Kamara is such a weird
dead
thing
zone
to
back.
say.
Notable dead zone back Alvin Kamara going after like arguably a dusty James Conner who just had a great season and an unknown Travis Etienne who I've been following this team on Travis Etienne, but it's totally in his range of outcomes to be some like 11 point per game guy or worse and just totally bury a ton of people taking him in this range where you can get the elite wide receivers. So I mean, I really like our start here where we're going to try hard to just anchor these two running backs and get some wide receivers. It's a bummer to skip out on the like why I've not been taking as much Kyle Pitts as I like some of I like Waller just as much. I like George Kittle pretty much just as much. I like Dalton Schultz a lot. I even like Dawson Knox, some of those guys. And the wide receivers we can get now is like I really like Marquise Brown this year. DJ Moore, I don't really view DJ Moore that differently with Baker. I see some people are now saying he should be like ahead of AJ Brown. I'm not on that bandwagon. Gabriel Davis is one of my guys always. But yeah, I like the way we built this team. Let's go over under 7 touchdowns for Kyle Pitts this year.
I say in the meeting he probably goes under because that team probably doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns.
I'm not asking for the medium. I'm asking for a gut check right now. Kyle to Kyle. How many touchdowns for Kyle Pitts? 6.5, 7.5.
I think 6.5 would have been the right line. 7.5, I'd say under. 6.5, that's like I'd probably project him for like 7.
Okay. Hey, if he gets 7 touchdowns, that's a fucking smash of a season.
Well, yeah, the thing is, he was like probably like a top 3 or 4 tight end last year, and did he score 0 or 1 touchdowns?
I think he averaged like 10.9 PPR points per game, which is lower than Dawson Knox, lower than Gronk, lower than Dalton Schultz, lower than a lot of people for PPR. I don't know about half point PPR. I just remember these numbers from like looking at DK drafts and looking at that, but there was something else interesting you said. I kind of forget it. Brandon Cooks is getting expensive. I'm not chasing that steam. I liked him when he was a 5th, 6th round guy. I mean, come on. The Texans wideout we're taking in the 3rd round? I don't think so. Okay, so we could go Rashad Bateman for the correlation. That's kind of how I like to play this.
Yep, I would either take Bateman here or Kyler Murray. Those are like the two. Only 2 picks I'd consider here, honestly.
Yeah, I would consider Godwin. Amon-Ra made me a millionaire, so he's always welcomed on this show. But let's go Bateman. How many touchdowns? Let's do again 6.5 touchdowns. Rashad Bateman over under.
I'll take the over with Bateman, especially because I have some level of faith that we see a return to like well above average efficiency from Lamar. And if there's any chance we don't get like J.K. Dobbins week 1, we could still see them forced to throw more. And they just have like no one on that team. It's the worst team's wide receivers, maybe in the NFL. And that's with me liking Bateman a lot. Like I think he was, statistically, he was an elite prospect. And if he captures any of that, he will just dust the rest of the team.
Are you afraid at all that the Ravens, if the Ravens sign Will Fuller, if the Ravens sign, I guess,
Julio, it'd have to be Julio that would concern me. Will Fuller,
would that knock down? And are you a little bit lower on Mark Andrews with your love of Bateman?
Yeah, I've been lower on Mark Andrews, again, at cost, because I just can't really see why you wouldn't take someone like Kyle Pitts ahead of him, other than like the offense should be more efficient. But we saw last year, it wasn't that awfully different of a Mark Andrews that we had seen before. His target share was like 1% ahead of what it was the year before. His air yard share was, I think, 2% ahead. He got a ton more routes run, but it didn't convert to extra volume.
I'll play devil's advocate for you. And then I'll support your idea as well, because I've been thinking about this. Devil's advocate, you want to get the tight ends in good offenses, and Kyle Pitts plays for the Falcons, so we should expect them to score less touchdowns. And their quarterback is either Marcus Mariota or Ritter, who's probably not going to. We should probably expect to be worse than Matt Ryan was last year, from a passing yard expectation baseline. So like Kyle Pitts versus Mark Andrews in that sense. However, on the other side, if Mark Andrews did not have those performances in the playoffs, would he not probably be going around Darren Waller and like, would he not be a 3rd round pick instead of a 2nd round pick if he didn't have those performances when Lamar wasn't even the quarterback? Okay, real quick, we're on the clock.
I would probably
kind of an ugly spot. Who are you feeling?
I'd probably take Jalen Hurts, because I think we're running out of like potential elite quarterbacks here, especially when you like really factor in rushing production. It's like him.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to reach on one of these wideouts, but I also kind of want to just take J.K. Dobbins and go that's what I maybe would have done if I was doing this purely by myself. But Hurts gives us some Philly, New Orleans stacks. We can always throw in a late round Quez Watkins. Or Devonta Smith might make it to us, although that's unlikely.
Yeah.
Also, for my portfolio, I have a lot of Hurts teams from when he was a 6th, 7th round pick to open the contest. Oh, this is what I was bringing up regarding the falling. Like I brought up earlier about how I want to get Alvin Kamara because now he's falling. I think a lot of people mentioned that type of strategy, like getting your exposures as players fall. But I want to point out why it's not a perfect thing is because the ADPs of the rest of your lineup are going to be different now than they were 3 months earlier. So it's not perfect to just say, oh, I'm not going to take Alvin Kamara now, like I kind of was saying earlier, because I'm going to be able to get him 2 rounds cheaper later. Yes, that's like generally what you want to be doing. But keep in mind, like you could also have gotten on those earlier teams, Gabriel Davis in the 6th round, Mike Williams in the 6th round. So it's not perfect if you're going to draft throughout the season to just say, hey, I'm going to get, I don't want to take this player because he's going to fall. I think that's like a simplified way to do it. It's usually kind of how I take it, but I do recognize that the whole contexture of your roster is going to be different.
Yeah, it's like directionally accurate, but not perfect because, like you said, like you could have like there's so many spots where you could probably just have players who are flipped. Like one player, like the Trey Lance riser, right? I'm sure Trey Lance has jumped many rounds, and you're like, well, I got Trey Lance, and
I'll tell you an example right now of players who flipped. DK Metcalf and Gabriel Davis have flipped.
Exactly. Yep. So you're like, oh, I got DK Metcalf super late in this draft, but you just took Gabriel Davis where people 2 months ago were taking DK Metcalf, and you just have the same team, and you just took it in a different order, a unique order, but the order doesn't matter.
Yeah. Guys people in the comments there, let us know if you have any questions for Kyle or me. You mentioned Hurts, one of the last elite quarterbacks. Are you trying to usually get one of the top Konami quarterbacks on your teams?
Yeah, either that or I haven't been doing this as much because I think there's still an edge in taking the Russian quarterbacks. But I would just say one of the elite quarterbacks in general. And to be a supreme rushing threat, you kind of have to be Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. Maybe you could throw Tom Brady in there, but like you kind of need to be able to throw for, I guess Tom Brady kind of qualifies, but even then, the difference between Patrick Mahomes rushing
Brady qualifies. I mean, we can't say he doesn't after he averaged like 24.5 points.
Yeah, also he threw for like over 5,000 yards, and I think
Rodgers probably qualifies too. It's just they're old, so.
Rodgers is kind of year to year with that because sometimes he will throw for 4,000 yards flat and 45 touchdowns or something like that because he just like dumps off so many times and is super efficient as a touchdown percentage guy, but not nearly as much as yards. So I think you probably, if you are,
I would like to go Elijah Moore or Michael Thomas.
I go Elijah Moore. But,
okay, let's go Elijah Moore. We're getting the. I don't have a ton of Moore usually because he goes in this pick range, and I am someone who generally takes a top-down approach. So, like, if what I project is going to be probably not that great of a passing team, like, look, I think the Jets could be better. They should be better with Garrett Wilson. I have a lot more Wilson than Moore. But, I don't know. I just find it hard that Zach Wilson was just so fucking bad. It's just really hard to evaluate. I know their O-line is better this year, but I usually try to target players from, like I'd rather have Chris Godwin than Elijah Moore, even though I know I'm not going to get that many games from him. Michael Thomas would have fit some intercorrelation with the Saints, set up for Jameis late. But Michael Thomas is drawn live to make it back to us. Like, people seem to be hate taking him. He's another example of a faller.
Oh, yeah, elite quarterbacks, though, especially in the past 2 years, our ability to predict elite quarterbacks has become so much better, like so much better. Like as a mathematical measure too. I think JJ has talked about this. I looked at this a year ago as well, and just the R square between like ADP and fantasy points scored is like pretty high in the past 2 years. And there was like a year, like 2016, I think it's when a bunch of guys got hurt. So that's obviously why it happens. But in general, where it was like negative, the correlation between ADP and like top 18 quarterbacks was negative. So we had like 2 popular ones get hurt. And then it
was like 3. And Rodgers did, well, it was a couple things.
It could have been the Rodgers
had a bad season. And you had all these like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar entering the league. And so just because it's new and they're younger players, they were cheaper. Like 2 years ago, Josh Allen and Matt Ryan went like right next to each other in ADP.
God bless our hearts.
Yeah, like we were trash at fantasy. Think about the first round 2 years ago. Josh Jacobs, a first round pick. Kenyon Drake. Okay, we're gonna take Michael Thomas here. Nick Underhill, noted Saints reporter, seems real bullish that Michael Thomas is going to play well this year.
Well, Underhill's pretty bullish on the Saints, as it turns out. Also projected them for like 11 wins.
Well, yeah. I mean, are you saying that he's generally a rose-colored analyst? Because
yeah, rose-colored about his Saints, but also like I don't think he'd be rose-colored about like Michael Thomas playing. That's sort of something that is more factual and less projection in the sense of like he is or is not healthy. Whereas like you can sort of skew the numbers favor of their wins.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. Like he sells coverage for fans, so like
he's also a really good reporter, though. I'm just giving him flack for being optimistic on the Saints. He is, honest to God, one of the best beats.
If he was just like a negative Nancy, people are not going to sign up for a site. That being said, I've said for a long time, Jameis is one of my favorite late round quarterbacks because we've seen it before. Everything the Saints have done tells me they think they're going to be good. They had an out this year. They could have blown it up, right? They could have blown it up, but they play in the NFC, which is just flat out easier. You don't have all the young elite quarterbacks. Their pass catchers are great. They still have a good defense, right? They still have Alvin Kamara, and it correlates with their team. It's a bit of a bummer for my portfolio because I don't really know why the past 2 years I was not taking Michael Thomas. I thought the risk was too much. And now this year I've shifted. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to lean into the uncertainty. I'm leaning into most risky situations this year for my portfolio. Got a lot of Will Fuller, got a lot of Michael Thomas, etc. But Michael Thomas used to be a 5-6 turn guy. He would go right here. Now he's fallen all the way down to the 8th. So that's not great for my portfolio, but other ADPs have shifted around.
On this team, would you take Jameis? Because we already have a quarterback of that game. So I would say we're probably not benefiting from like the game stack as much because we can't like
that's correlation. An interesting question, which I've pondered in the past too. And I think it's totally fine to take him because if the game is good, like you probably want quarterbacks, and like I mean, one of them is hurt, so I mean, who knows? Like, just real quick, let's make our pick here. Do you want to get another running back with us having Alvin, or do you want to grab?
I would keep going at wide receiver.
Do you want to go Lockett for the correlation, the Seattle Jets?
Oh yeah, let's do that one. Yeah.
Or do you want to do Claypool, which also correlates with our Baltimore pit stack?
Lockett.
Lockett? Okay. I have almost no Lockett, so happy to add some of him. I think Ken Walker would have been interesting too with him falling. He's a guy I don't have a lot from before.
I don't either. And now I should probably start working on getting him.
Exactly. Like I have a ton of Rashad Penny, or as we call him on this channel, usually Rashad Dollar, since he won me the million. But and like Lockett's just the type of bet that currently bad quarterback, older player. Like, yeah, I get people are shocked he's cheap, but like, look, a lot of his production was from Russell Wilson. Like, that's just pretty obvious. And I don't think we should say, I mean, in one hand, it's like, how bad can you be in today's NFL as a starting quarterback? Like, the quarterback's still probably going to throw for 3,700, nearly 4,000 yards. So there's going to be points on that team. But yeah, I don't know. He's not an exciting click, but he could be, especially against the Jets week 17, could be great for us.
We also have an out to them getting Jimmy Garoppolo. There was a report from like a week or two ago where they had had internal discussions about acquiring Jimmy. And the easier part is that Jimmy's making so much money that can be shed, a decent amount of that money can be shed by cutting him, that we could get Jimmy as a free agent. And they're the team. Maybe the Browns, if Watson gets a juicy suspension, but it's like one team who would want to sign a starting.
Do you want to go Claypool?
Yeah.
I mean, getting both these guys. Claypool is another guy who I had his rookie year, I had like 80%. And so that worked out great when he had that 4 touchdown game. Last year I had quite a bit. This year I've not been taking as much. I just don't see how, he's going to, I know like Evan Silva's big on him. Some other players are big on him. I'm not like chasing him by any means. He used to also be more expensive. And so like, I would prefer like Treylon Burks, Robert Woods. Mike asks you, in my ADD way of jumping around here, hey Kyle, are you a Treylon Burks or Woods guy?
I don't want to take either of these players. I don't want to take Woods because I was
gonna remove you from the stream if you said Woods only.
I don't want to take Woods because he's not interesting or fun or great. I don't want to take Treylon Burks because can't make it through practice. I would take Treylon Burks. I'd still take Treylon Burks because if one of these guys is going to be a player you need to have, I feel like it's so much more likely to be like a good stretch run from Treylon Burks. When the weather gets cold, he's not wheezing through practices and he can get out there and play a full snap share. But also more importantly, if this team has a player that fits the bill of AJ Brown, which they don't, but if they have one that can match 60, even 60 is not a lot.
Shit, John Mechie in the 10th. What is Veneer
Thanks for paying the rake, brother.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't punt his other picks either. Javen Njoku, okay, he's getting weird in the 10th. I will make a stand there. I am a Treylon Burks guy. I also like Woods a little bit, but I think, this has been purely my take. No one else is saying this. I think it's likely Treylon Burks maybe had COVID. I had COVID around that time when all those reports were coming out. It was not easy to just go back and run. Like, I think it's possible he had COVID rest of the month. Maybe he didn't. Who cares? Let's say he's 80% of AJ Brown, right? That's not that good of a benchmark. That is a great fantasy asset. Robert Woods is old. Treylon Burks hunts boars with his hands. Like
I got a feeling the dogs are doing more of that work now. Now seeing Treylon Burks is wheezing through practice, he's a really big human. And
real quick, let's make a pick here. I kind of like going Madison or Gallup.
I always take a lot of Madison. I take a lot of Madison, a lot of Pollard, because one of these years, with Madison, it's like literally every year we get like 2 25-point games, like as a lock. He plays so much of the Dalvin Cook role whenever Dalvin Cook is out. It's just unreal.
Well, and with the new coaching staff, maybe he's going to be on the field more. They might do more 2RB potentially. But with Treylon Burks, like, I don't know. The NFL is a copycat league. If a player's going to get like this Deebo Samuel role where you just throw short A-dot passes and throw it to a wide receiver and have him like get blocked and try to house it, that seems like Treylon Burks to me. The dude weighs like 220 or something. That's a lumbering man. I just like to have exposure to these different archetype players. Look, he's not going to be Jamar Chase, but I think he could definitely approach 1,000 yards or so. They're going to need to throw the ball to fucking someone. Like, Robert Woods is not going to be a dominator at his age, even though he looks fine in camp.
Yeah, I have more Burks than I have Woods. I have like very few, if any, Woods teams. I have some Burks. I was getting him before I knew he couldn't practice, which is not great. But for me, not having much of either is
Burks
basically
used
just
to be a
not being in on the
6th round
Titans.
pick. Burks used to be a 6th round pick,
Yeah.
and so like I'm kind of just like protecting my exposure there and saying, well, I'm taking him in the 10th round too. We are on the clock. Pratt Freiermuth correlates with our team. Jameson Williams is one of the last upside wide receivers to me. Do you like?
I'd be fine with Jameson Williams. I haven't taken a lot of Pat Freiermuth, especially with how much Steelers we have. I don't know if
we have one. We have 2 Steelers. Yeah, let's do Jameson. I like that. What week of the season do you think we see him?
The pup list now, I think, is only 4 games. Let's double check this, but they moved the pup list back from 6 to 4.
3.
Yeah, it got shorter. It's like 3 or 4, and I would think we see him after that at a minimum. He could be ready for week 1. I would bet against that, I think. But
if that's true, if he only misses 3, I don't give a fuck about 3 games.
Yeah, and we have good receivers too. It's not like we're like taking him as our 3rd receiver or 4th receiver, and we're like, I need 8 points the first week from him.
I think I saw Hayden Winks recently tweet out that the Detroit beat is in on DJ Chark, and therefore out a little bit on Jameson Williams being ready. But I don't know how like I just don't know the beat writers that well to know like who I should be trusting.
I will trust Hayden trusting them. I trust Hayden. He used to work at NBC, so his news game is on point. I will trust whoever he trusts.
Yeah, but the question is like, what was even the context of the question? Sometimes like they could just ask like, who do you like on the team?
Yeah. And like, also we don't like, it's totally fine if DJ Chark comes out for the first 9 weeks and is the team's primary deep threat. If we get there on the final 6, like Jameson Williams didn't cost us enough to make it so that we have to have a full 17 games of him playing every snap. We need like a third of a season if it's down the right stretch of the season.
And arguably with Jared Goff being the quarterback, like the deep threat, usually not that high value of a role. Like arguably we want DJ Chark running go routes and like Jameson Williams getting like intermediate slants where he can use his shiftiness to go house the ball. Like kind of like those Tyreek Hill plays where he like gets like a 15-yard catch and just, shakes everyone out. Like that's what we would prefer on the team rather than Jameson running those go routes. And DJ Chark is good at football. Like if he was on a different team, I would have a ton of him. I had about like 20% last year, and that would have worked if he did not get injured. Like you look at those first 3 games, he gave you 2 usable weeks out of 3 weeks and then got hurt. Thanks guys for the questions and tuning in to the last minute streams. 50 of you on this Monday. Appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm over 500 subscribers somehow. We launched this channel a month ago. Help me get to 1,000. That is the goal. Okay, we are coming to a pocket where wide receiver, tight end seems pretty common. You asked me about taking Jameis with us having this stack. Is like the answer is yes, I would do it. We have the pieces, so it correlates. We don't have to force some other weird correlation. The other thing is like, I understand the sentiment. Like you don't want both quarterbacks from one single game. You're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, but maybe Jameis gets you to week 17. I think we should take him here. Like, I guess we do have a Zach Wilson backdoor, which
that's what I would do, but I don't think taking Jameis is bad. Like, I don't think it's
would you prefer Mike? Would you prefer Mike Gesicki?
Yes, that's probably where I'd be picked. Especially, I don't love Mike Gesicki. That'd be my pick here.
Let's take Mike Gesicki. And I think, like, if the drafters know what they're doing in this room, no one should be taking a naked Jameis.
It is. You always anticipate that you have all of the, like, I have Garrett Wilson, I have Elijah Moore, I have Tyler Lockett. There's no way some a-hole would take Zach Wilson 15 picks ahead of ADP. And lo and behold, you always give them, I always give them too much credit.
Literally last night, I did a BBM 3, which I'm trying not to do my own ones down on stream, but I did one and I took Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, and the rookie there. I'm forgetting his name right now. Yeah, Chris Olave. And some dude in the one hole took a naked Jameis above ADP with the other two quarterbacks. I was like, okay, brother, hallelujah to you. I got a different stack. I like backstacked Mac Jones. Hunter, like Mike Gesicki falling, he's just too athletically of a freak to not take him here. But Hunter Henry is a guy I have a lot of, kind of anticipating a jump from Mac Jones. I like that we took Gesicki too with all these tight ends. Are you trying to go 2 tight ends with us having Pitts and Gesicki, or are you trying to go 3?
I'd stick at 2 here, especially because I think we're more likely to need 3 quarterbacks on this team, given that we spent more on both our first tight end versus our first quarterback and our second tight end versus our second and hypothetically third quarterback. So,
well, I would say that's wrong. I would say if we grab Jameis here or Zach Wilson, I would almost always rather go 3 tight ends over 3 quarterbacks, with the reason being is Hurts, as we said earlier, is an elite quarterback, and we predicted him to be so. We're more confident that we can predict the fantasy production there. The other reason is we're less likely to be separated from the field at the quarterback position. So, like, let's say Hurts has a bad week. I'm going to cue in Jameis here while we talk. Let's say Hurts has a bad week and has like 15 points and someone else has 25 points. Okay, we got separated by 10 points there, but tight end is such a high variance position where you need touchdowns pretty much to separate from the field week 17. So you're almost always better off having a third tight end than a third quarterback, especially when we have one elite one. And to me, Jameis is the late round guy who very easily could be elite with the good pass catchers, has a Vegas total of like 7.5. What are your thoughts on that pushback from me?
Yeah, I think in terms of the separation thing, this was more in the context of the entire season, but it bore out in Osimo's simulations for best ball, was it having that third quarterback. And I think Hayden had something similar. I think this was actually to best ball Mania 2, or well, it was probably 2 data, was that having that third quarterback can be a pretty big differentiator. And I would say you're probably, I don't know. I wonder where you do get most of the big tight end games from. I would have believed it was just from the guys who get 150 yards, and there are like 5 guys who get 150
Well,
yards.
I mean, I'll use an example. Like last year, I had Noah Fant in the finals at 3% ownership. Like, you're just so likely, thinking through the week 17 championship week, you're so likely to have a low-owned tight end if you take 3, which is already a super high variance position because it's dependent on touchdowns, that if you can sneak in a 3% owned tight end, and like for me last year, Noah Fant scored 17 points, no other tight end scored a touchdown. So I separated from the field by, 10 points or so. You're just so likely to be like, have a high leverage player on your roster week 17, where it's like, even if you sneak in a low owned quarterback, and with Zach Wilson going, I would say us taking 3 is dead. Even if you sneak in a low owned quarterback, like, you're not going to get some super high leverage on the field because people are going to have Patrick Mahomes. People are going to have Josh Allen. So we pretty much made our bet that Hurts is an elite guy. And like, if Hurts was Murray, I'm definitely stopping at. Let's pause my thought real quick. We need more running backs. Do you like Jamal Williams? Correlates with their team?
Yeah. I've been taking some Jamal Williams. He was going so much higher last year, and really not that much has changed. Like, we knew
he's
DeAndre
a really
Swift,
good person. Like, from his, I don't know that, but from his interviews, like, really high spirit, like, funny guy. Like, I like to bet on those type of people.
Yeah, and like, not much has changed from last year. It's not like we found out all of a sudden DeAndre Swift was really good last year. We knew he was probably very good and that he would earn a lot more touches than Jamal Williams. And ultimately, he earned more high-value touches. We still saw some decent usage from Jamal Williams, and that's kind of what we expected. We saw about what we expected last year, yet somehow Jamal Williams has still fallen so far off from being like last year, a pretty obvious like 0 RB guy, a good like floor guy. I guess he does also have handcuff ceiling. Now, I honestly don't have a strong reason as to why Jamal Williams would go so much later this year, which I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah, I think it's just people like Swift better. So Jamal is going like, and I wasn't in on him earlier. Now I've been taking some. But let's finish up that point. So on this team, I'd be fine stopping at 2 tight ends. But I would much rather go a third tight end than a third quarterback. Just because like Taysom Hill fits the bill as a third tight end for us, especially with us having like you're drawing live for it to be Jameis to Taysom or Taysom to Michael Thomas or Taysom goal line rushes. So like there's like a different ways they can pay
I feel like
off.
the ceiling outcome for Taysom is that on this team, the ceiling outcome for Taysom is that one of your quarterbacks on the team we have already drafted gets hurt. And
kind of, but you're free rolling where you could also get the Jameis to Taysom. Like maybe Adam Troutman is just not a NFL quality tight end. And so,
I mean, they had Jared Cook Jared Cook's fine, and they had him on the team 2 or so years ago whenever Taysom caught a bunch of touchdowns. So it's not like they're not going to use him, even if Troutman is like good enough, because Jared Cook was good enough, and they still
don't know what
Taysom.
they're going to do without Sean Payton. Like,
yeah,
I mean, Taysom Hill is 31 years old or something egregious like that. Like, man is old. Okay. Looking at our team here, though, what are you feeling for this next pick?
I'd be fine to take.
If you want to go wide out, I like one of these 3 guys.
I've been taking some Paris Campbell lately, so I'd be fine with that. I'm fine with any of these 3 guys. I'm not taking.
James Robinson is kind of fun for our team because we maybe have the strength to get him to the playoffs. Let's take Campbell and we'll figure out our next running back.
Yeah, I haven't been taking a lot of Hamler. I get that he's like a probably pretty like high ceiling guy because all it takes is him making the starting lineup in a number of ways, and he gets to be the third option deep threat for Russell Wilson. But like,
well, he's drawing live to be the 2 is the thing. Is like with Denver, the market has decided it's Judy and Sutton, but it could so easily be Sutton and Patrick. It could be Hamler and Sutton, because like. Russell Wilson threw out an Instagram of KJ Hamler that said future star.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, how are we going to ignore that? He's a deep threat as is. So, like, at worst case, you have a deep threat for a good deep threat quarterback. And yeah, he just seems like he can really smash the fuck out of his ADP if things break his way.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the reason I'm taking him, I would push back on the ease with which it could be anybody. Given like as a rookie, KJ Hamler didn't really play much, got like less than 400 yards, and they have a first round receiver on their team who, at 19 or 20 years old, Jerry Jeudy outproduced like Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, and one of the other first rounders on that team. And Tim Patrick makes like 10 million a year, and Courtland Sutton makes like 15 million a year. Like, there's very clearly, I mean, like I like Tim Patrick. They paid a lot of money for a player who's their third receiver. So they clearly have some sort of affinity for him.
In 2 wide receiver sets, I think Judy's coming off the field and it's Patrick and Sutton.
Yeah, I think I could totally see that. I think that's more likely
because any Patrick's a blocker.
Yeah, any combination of the 3 or of like 2 out of 3 of Judy, Sutton, Patrick, I think is more likely than any combination of like Hamler getting in there outside of an injury.
Well, I would say maybe like if I'm running the team between the 20s, maybe I want Hamler because he stretches the field, but in close to the goal line, maybe I want Patrick because he's a bigger body. And I think the Broncos could very likely run more 2 tight end sets. They have Nathaniel Hackett, a guy who kind of likes to establish the run.
I was going to bring that up too, yeah.
And they have Greg Dulcich now on the team, so like and a capable Albert O. So like in close, maybe the roster is looking like Javonte Williams in the backfield, Sutton and Patrick are the wideouts, and then Dulcich and Albert O with Judy sometimes getting slot work, sometimes not. I don't know. But I've not been taking a ton of Judy. Just kind of like some of those concerns. Have you been taking him?
I've been getting a lot of Judy because I've been getting a lot of Broncos. Like the thing I was trying to say about, the Titans is not that I don't like Treylon Burks. I don't like Titans. Like, I think it's so likely that given how good his first year with Titans was, so likely that the best year of Ryan Tannehill was far behind us. And the reason they were so good is because they could just like run really well with Henry, and then play action bomb to AJ Brown. And that's not something Treylon Burks did in college a ton. Like, he did get some deep work, but a lot of his work was near, behind, or close to the line of scrimmage. So I think that offense could be very, very disappointing for what we're paying for like a rookie Treylon Burks who can't make it through practice. Whereas I think the ceiling is so sort of nebulously unlimited with Russell Wilson not playing with a coach who coaches
real
like
quick. Let's pause you. I'm a Will Fuller guy. I think we just have to take.
Let her rip.
Have you been taking him this year, or are you like
his price is too close? Especially, I'm drafting more on DraftKings, still some on Underdog, to where like I've been getting far more Julio than Will Fuller of my like guys not on teams. But in this draft,
I'm swapped there. I'm more Fuller than Julio. Really? Just because I mean Fuller's younger. He's 28. Julio's old. And I mean, it would just be so poetic for Will Fuller's last rugging of me to be that he retires.
I know. I always think like there's no way Julio Jones or Will Fuller, their ADPs can go down, right? They will sign and we will boost them up. And then just like one of them's going to retire and it's going to absolutely.
It's going to be Fuller, but fuck it. To push back on what you said there, though, I mean, you're comfortable taking Tyler Lockett in the same range where the Titans guys go, and their quarterback right now is Drew Lock or whoever. And at best case, we're hoping it's a bad Jimmy G.
Jimmy G's fine.
I don't see that much of a difference between Tannehill / maybe Malik Willis is actually good at football, and the drafters, the NFL teams are just wrong like they were about Russell Wilson. How do you feel about the beats St. Patrick as the 2? Yeah, I mean, I think that's
totally possible.
I like Tim Patrick. With our team right here, we are taking a 5th running back, I would say. So we're going to go 2. We're going 2 and 2 at the onesie. So this is the type of team that I built that won last year, a 2-5-9-2. And this year, yeah, I've been mainly sticking to this type of structure, but I have been building more 2-5-8-3 teams just because rethinking through the tight end position, what I was mentioning earlier, like it's just so touchdown dependent. I want more shots on goal. For purely week 17.
Yeah, I especially feel that if you don't invest, if you don't get like Kyle Pitts as your first tight end, if I have like Mike Gesicki and another like of those mid-tier tight ends, I'm always taking 3 because you like Mike Gesicki isn't dropping 150 yards, it's just not happening. But he could score 2 touchdowns, and so could Albert O or any of these guys. Actually, James Robinson. Why wouldn't I? That feels kind of easy to me.
James Robinson. We got a falling James Robinson. The only problem is Alvin Kamara might be suspended for 6 games. James Robinson probably not going to play for.
We're sweating out active players for week 1.
We really need Najee to be like a 15 point per game guy minimum for the first 2 months of the season, and then Madison and Jamal to be like giving us like 5 to 10. And then we just need to like be lapping the room at tight end and wide receiver, which I wouldn't say is super likely, but I like the bets we've made on this team. We'll take a look at our full team here in a second. And if you were in the draft with us, let us know, and maybe we'll take a peek at your team.
I did know that we have a decent chance at getting James Robinson back for week 1. And the last report we have on him is ESPN writer says he is expected to be cleared at some point during training camp, like fully cleared bill of health, which, we're typically pretty optimistic, like beats coaches. Everyone is typically pretty optimistic about player health, but that still brings us live to get him for week 1, which is
that's huge. Important. I mean, if we get him for week 1, that's huge. Chance, I see you better. We'll check you in a second there. Yeah, I mean, just to finish up on the tight end thing, like I like Kyle Pitts, the talent. There's clearly going to be 1 year minimum where he probably like breaks fantasy football. So like when there's players like that in the player pool, like one strategy is just to always draft them, and you're going to hit that 1 year eventually. Just because he is a wide receiver playing at the tight end position. On the other hand, you need touchdowns to be good on Underdog versus DK. So like the guys that just give you 100 yards and 0, I don't care about that. You really need that. Like you brought up the like multiple touchdown example kind of as like an unlikely scenario, but realistically, I think that's what you're trying to find. You're trying to find the random late round tight end that gives you 0 points the whole season and then scores 2 touchdowns week 17. And that's really how you separate from a 460 person field in the final. So that's why I usually build 3 tight end. But I really like looking at our wide receivers. We got Diggs, who we're just counting to be every week plus upside. Ton of upside in some of our other guys. Not sexy, but should be usable. Ton of upside in Jameson. Just need him to be healthy. There's been some fun reports on Paris Campbell, and I've always been a better him. Will Fuller, what's more to be said about him? And some discounts. Our tight ends should be consistent. Like, we should be minimum 10-ish points each week, which is like really great for separating from and advancing. And then we just need the touchdowns that come our way, which Mike Gesicki plays the Pats week 17. So I would say that's maybe how you target that defense versus the corners. And then Kyle Pitts plays Arizona, who could be terrible on defense. Our quarterbacks are fun. And our running backs we talked about. How are you feeling about the squad?
I like this team. This is a team that I would draft. And not to pat myself on the back, but when I can draft a team I would draft on stream, feels like a success.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, you were instrumental here in getting some falling values. Like getting Pitts plus Kamara versus Kamara plus whoever. Huge W for our team. The 2-hole Veggie Man 24 would like us to look at him. So he went 2.583. No complaints about the quarterbacks or the running backs. Like, obviously you need Cam Akers to be the guy. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't.
I'm doing a lot of Cam Akers on the idea that, like, yeah, he's at his price as a player who could really like break fantasy relative to price, of course, but like he could be a first round pick next year. It really wouldn't surprise me given the workload. He was averaging like 16 carries a game during the playoffs. Now he sucked on those carries, but he was coming off of an injury that oftentimes like sidelines a player for like years. Or
yeah, I mean, when I was watching those playoff games, I was like, oh, I'm going to draft a shitload of Cam Akers. And now I've not been taking as much of him. It's just like, I like Darrell Henderson still, but I should be getting more Cam Akers. Wide receivers, obviously a smash on this team. And then tight ends, you got 3 bodies and 2 fun ones, plus some correlation for your team. So pretty good team. Not a ton of week 17 correlation. You did get some Rams, Chargers in there, which is probably the 101 of games to stack. And you got a little bit of Arizona, Atlanta. You have the type of team that can advance DeAndre Hopkins. So good-looking team. Don't draft with me next time. No,
yeah, I think for me, a lot of I think assuming I advance a few teams to different finals across different platforms, I'm really going to want one of the games to go very poorly, like Bengals, Bengals, Buffalo, Rams, other Los Angeles team.
You're going to need one of those games to tank the way you're building, you're saying?
Assuming a lot of the teams, especially like on a site like Underdog, where a lot of people are sort of keen to the idea that like when you get to the finals, you want your distribution to be as bimodal as possible because all the money's in first. So you will be stacking a lot of, but a lot of people just stack the good games is what I've noticed. And that makes sense. But like, if for us, actually, our team's a perfect example. If like 2 out of the 3 of those 3 popular double LA, Denver, Kansas City, and Buffalo, Cincinnati. If 2 out of the 3 of those go like very poorly, Buffalo's a weather game or something. I don't remember if it's in Buffalo or Cincinnati. Both could be weather games. That's an awful weather game. And one of them, the defense is just good. Turns out both LA defenses are very good. That is what I want because especially in Underdog, I think a lot of people are just going to show up to the finale, to the final table, and everyone's like, I took Patrick Mahomes, you took Patrick Mahomes, and you're just flipping coins.
I think it's possible that we're in a bubble and that not as many people are going to stack in the field as we think. I also think that those who do stack are stacking the good games. Like it's so easy to stack Broncos, Chiefs, and I have all those stacks as well.
Yeah, I have them.
I mean, like looking at the games we stacked 3 ugly games on paper. We stacked Philly Saints, we stacked Ravens Pitt. No one's doing that, and we stacked
I'm doing that, baby.
Jets, and we stacked Jets and
Seahawks,
right? Like those are some gross games that we targeted. No other correlations really on the squad, but yeah, I like it.
If Saints Philly goes off that game, just for whatever reason, any game has some percentage chance of where both teams score 38 or whatever, both teams go over 35. I think maybe teams aren't, people aren't stacking as much as like I kind of think they are because of our bubble, but I know for a fact they are not stacking the games we have stacked nearly as much. And those games have a percentage chance of going off. And you may be the only one in a field of 490, whatever, who has like this combination of players from this, like not that exciting on paper game, but it has a chance of going off. And if it goes off, like, and our team's in the finals, it has a very good likelihood of taking it down. And I think that's like still one of the underpushed edges of the nerds among us who are stacking week 17.
Yeah, I mean, I think like some of the sharper people like are on stacking Jacksonville, Houston. Like that's a pretty like stacking the Jets and the Seahawks and Houston, and like those are teams where just the defenses are bad and like offense beats defense. So those games I think people are pretty hip to. But the game like Ravens, Pitt, and Saints and Philly, like people are not jumping at the gun to stack that game usually, even compared to something like an Arizona, Atlanta. But okay, Kyle, we've taken enough of your time. Thanks so much for doing this with me today. Tell the people where they can see your work and what you got coming up.
I tweet out almost anything I do. So if you just follow me on Twitter at Kyle Tweets Here, you'll find it. I'm on the NBC Sports A Good Football Show, our podcast, and we talk about best ball a lot. So if you like this, that's probably something you'd like.
All right, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Kyle, thanks for doing this draft with me today. I'll be sure to name it so you can get your 50% equity if I bink. Let me, maybe I did this wrong. I'll name this. Here we go. Name it, and we're going to do draft on stream with Kyle. Kyle D. All right, guys, have a great day. Tell your family you love them. Peace.